But no regime has oppressed its own citizens more totally or brutally than the cruel dictatorship in North Korea. North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland. We are waging a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from ever happening. Past experience has taught us that complacency and concessions only invite aggression and provocation. I will not repeat the mistakes of past administrations that got us into this very dangerous position. We need only look at the depraved character of the North Korean regime to understand the nature of the nuclear threat it could pose to America and to our allies.
North Korea is set to hold a military parade to mark its Army's Foundation Day, which was moved to February 8th, just one day before the start of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics here in South Korea. The move has raised questions over whether it would affect the Games in any way, but Washington has downplayed its significance.
Just a day before the start of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics on Friday here in South Korea is North Korea's newly designated Foundation Day for the regime's Korean People's Army on February 8th. Pyongyang is to hold a range of celebratory events on the day, the main one being a large military parade. When asked about the possible impact of the parade just before the Winter Games, the Pentagon's chief spokesperson Dana White said on Thursday that North Korea often has parades and that the U.S. is very capable of countering any threat to the United States, its allies, or its partners. The spokesperson added that Washington sees the resumption of inter-Korean dialogue as a good sign and hopes it could lead to denuclearization talks between Washington and Pyongyang. According to Voice of America, satellite images of the regime show the preparations for the parade are well underway. Photos taken on Thursday are set to reveal red waves of people aligned to spell out the name of Kim Jong-un at Kim Il-sung Square. Other photos taken earlier in January show large movements at a square near the medium air base in Pyongyang, with hundreds of vehicles parked outside and troops in large formations. According to VOA, the scale of the parade seems to be similar to that of last year. North Korea often uses parades as a way to showcase its military might on special occasions, sometimes revealing newly developed weapons. The Foundation Day was previously celebrated on April 25th.
Now, North Korea is trying to pull some strings on the international stage to take the heat off itself a little bit. North Korea's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho has sent a letter to the UN urging the world body to stop the US taking actions that would disturb the thaw between the two Koreas. The regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency said the letter was sent on Wednesday to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Minister Ri wrote that the international community looks forward to seeing a continued easing of tension on the Korean peninsula, but the US is seeking to intentionally aggravate the situation with its strategic assets like the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier strike groups near the region. He added that the UN should not stay silent as the US plays a dangerous game and drives the world closer to nuclear war.
North Koreans arrived here in South Korea on Thursday to compete in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. The two Koreas have been planning several conciliatory gestures during the Olympics, as the South has been hoping that the Games will serve as an opportunity to mend ties with North Korea after a period of tensions on the Korean Peninsula over North Korea's nuclear program. However, U.S. President Donald Trump, during his first State of the Union address, warned that Pyongyang's pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten the U.S.
North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland.
North Korea, meanwhile, warned that if Washington goes ahead with delayed joint military exercises with Seoul after the Olympics, it will not sit idle. And before I sit down with an expert to talk more about this, let's first get a check on what's making news at this hour with our Kim Ji-yeon at the News Center. Good afternoon, Ji-yeon.
Good afternoon, Ji-yeon. North Korea is set to hold a military parade to mark its Army's Foundation Day on the eve of the opening day of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And South Korea's Unification Ministry said the parade should be viewed separately from the Games. Kim Myung-gil reports.
Despite its decision to send athletes to the Winter Olympics, North Korea announced it would celebrate the founding of its military on February 8th, one day before the start of Pyeongchang 2018. The North Military Foundation Day is generally marked with a large parade displaying weapons such as missiles and artillery. On Friday, Seoul's Unification Ministry commented on the parade.
Our Unification Minister has said the North's military parade is a domestic event and is not targeted towards the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. It is reasonable to see the event as separate to the Winter Games.
The spokesperson also cited briefings by the U.S. Defense Department, which said Pyongyang frequently holds such military parades and that Washington was not bothered by it. He once again reiterated that the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics will be an Olympics for peace.
All member countries within the United Nations should strive to make the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and Paralympics an event to foster peace within Korea and promote peace and cooperation throughout the world.
North Korea's athletes arrived in the South on Thursday, and the rest of the North delegation will enter South Korea next week. North Korea's art troupe will arrive on February 6th, while cheerleaders, members of the Taekwondo demonstration team, and journalists are scheduled to arrive on February 7th. Kim Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Despite tensions over North Korea's move to hold a military parade before the Pyeongchang Olympics, Washington has downplayed its significance, and rather it regards the inter-Korean dialogue as a precursor to denuclearization talks. Lee Jung-yeon reports.
Just a day before the start of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics on Friday here in South Korea is North Korea's newly designated Foundation Day for the regime's Korean People's Army on February 8th. Pyongyang is to hold a range of celebratory events on the day, the main one being a large military parade. When asked about the possible impact of the parade just before the Winter Games, the Pentagon's chief spokesperson Dana White said on Thursday that North Korea often has parades and that the U.S. is very capable of countering any threat to the United States, its allies, or its partners. The spokesperson added that Washington sees the resumption of inter-Korean dialogue as a good sign and hopes it could lead to denuclearization talks between Washington and Pyongyang. According to Voice of America, satellite images of the regime show the preparations for the parade are well underway. Photos taken on Thursday are set to reveal red waves of people aligned to spell out the name of Kim Jong-un at Kim Il-sung Square. Other photos taken earlier in January show large movements at a square near the medium air base in Pyongyang, with hundreds of vehicles parked outside and troops in large formations. According to VOA, the scale of the parade seems to be similar to that of last year. North Korea often uses parades as a way to showcase its military might on special occasions, sometimes revealing newly developed weapons. The Foundation Day was previously celebrated on April 25th.
First State of the Union address, U.S. President Donald Trump warned that North Korea, quote-unquote, very soon threaten the U.S. homeland with nuclear-tipped missiles. And North Korea, in response, said that if the U.S. goes ahead with military exercises with South Korea after the Olympics, it won't sit idle. So what can we make of these statements both from Trump and North Korea?
Well, I read the North Korean commentary. The title of the commentary is Misjudgment Will Lead to Ultimate Destruction. That is North Korea's way of warning America. I think North Korea is trying to portray it is the U.S. who is problematic, who is the U.S. who is trying to raise attention, not North Korea. North Korea is a peace lover. This propaganda which will not work because people are savvy about this. North Korea's tactics. But at the same time, it also, I think, shows that North Korea is also concerned about possible U.S. military strike against North Korea. So it's a double take. When North Korea wants something, that means that North Korea is also concerned about something as well.
Those are some fiery comments from Trump, don't you think?
Yes, particularly when Trump says so during the State of the Union address. Normally, the words that comes to Trump's strategy to North Korea is maximum pressure and engagement. But when you watch the State of the Union address, he just stopped saying maximum pressure. He didn't mention the engagement.
Right.
So people are wondering, oh, where is the engagement? It suddenly disappeared. So this is, maybe that's a coincidence, maybe that is intended, but this is something that we pay attention to, such as an analyst like me.
And there's also concerns that North Korea is indeed driving a wedge between Seoul and Washington because, in fact, the White House's original choice for U.S. Ambassador to South Korea, Victor Cha, is now no longer expected to be nominated for the position. So tell us more about this.
I think the reason Victor Cha was sidelined was, according to American media outlets report, is because he opposed limited military strike against North Korea. Second, he also opposed the civilian evacuation of Americans living in South Korea. We call non-combatant evacuation operation NEO. The NEO means it's a prelude to the start of the war. So Victor Cha opposed these military options. As I said, we don't have to overreact, but we also have to see things as they are. At least it confirms how seriously the military option is considered in the Washington policy-making circles. And in a sense that South Koreans also, we have been habituated for the last 60 or 70 years that this inter-Korean tension, and we think we are a little bit complacent. We take North Korean tension as business as usual,
Right.
and we don't. Sometimes we probably don't react or prepare as much as we should do. Particularly at this Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games, as in the South Korea accepts North Korea's olive branch and getting close toward North Korea, Washington is wary about North Korea, as you mentioned, trying to drive a wedge between Washington and Seoul. Also, Washington is concerned that probably North Korea's tactic is to reduce the internet sanctions against North Korea. So South Korea should tune to Washington's concerns, and there should be a robust communication between Washington and Seoul. Also, I think my request for Washington is that Washington sometimes doesn't really appreciate the complexity of international, the inter-Korean relations. North Korea is our enemy to destroy, at the same time our estranged brother to reunify. This is very complex emotional relations, and sometimes Washington doesn't necessarily appreciate this complex nature. At the same time, Seoul also needs to robustly explain what's going on in Seoul and Pyongyang. I think this kind of confidence building, communication, robust channel of communication is very, very necessary and due at this particular time.
So with Victor Cha out of the position now, I guess, or the nomination, I mean, should we be worried about a preventive military strike from the U.S. then?
I think, let me be very frank, I'm more worried today than at any other time since the Korean War. What that means is that as far as I know, and also in some of the 1.5 track 1.5 consultations I participate, including a former U.S. Defense Secretary, I think the U.S. is putting, as they said, putting all the options on the table, not excluding military options. Military options are also on the table. That is a U.S. resolve, and I think Pyongyang should be really realistic and see things as they are, reality on the ground, and also Seoul should really has the innocence that while we are celebrating this Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, we also have to think about the day after Pyeongchang Olympics. I think that's the key, how we could help pave the way for not just inter-Korean dialogue, but also Pyongyang-Washington dialogue. This is very important, I think.